everybody! So we've been working on upgrade stores and how that might apply to a 2D space shooter game where we can push a button, get a menu appearing, buy upgrades, and then have actual things change in the way that the gameplay happens in our little shooter game. Last week we got our lasers upgraded so that we could go from 1 to 2 and then eventually 3 different lasers, all with different sound effects and powers. This week we're going to add a shield system and some very powerful new missiles. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so I'm starting off here with a file I'm calling the Part 3 starter file, and that's just all the code that I completed in parts 1 and 2 of this tutorial. So if you just want to jump in at that point, you can grab the URL up above or from the file description down below and start working from there. Otherwise, I'd suggest you go back to part 1 of our tutorial and get started from the very beginning. So we are inside the main ship sprite, which has the majority of the code here. And I've initialized a bunch of variables here under start game. I'd like to add a couple more variables for the shield, which are the first thing we're going to be working on here. So there's 2 new variables, one called shield max, and that is the maximum number of energy points that your shield is going to be able to recharge to. And then shield energy, which is the level of energy that your shield currently has. So the idea is every time your shield gets hit by an enemy, it's going to deplete a little bit and it'll get dimmer on the screen or more transparent, and then it'll slowly start to recharge to its maximum health again as time goes on, and so it'll continue to protect you until it disappears, at which point you'll be vulnerable to getting hit by bad guys. So there's no lives in this particular game. We're just going to play until your shields run out, if you have shields, and then you die. And so there will only be 1 life to live, as there is in real life. So live with it. You can always modify the game, of course, if that's not the way you want to roll. You could add lives to it and all sorts of other stuff. With our variables all initialized, let's jump over to the upgrade sprite where we set up the clones for all of the various different pieces that you can add onto your spaceship. You can see here that over in week 1, we set up a system where every one of our clones has a clone ID stamped on it, and it will wear a costume based on its clone ID and then also on the upgrade level that's been given to it, and that will change the costume to one of these various costumes and then stamp it on top of the original sprite to change the look of your spaceship as it's going along. So we've got a couple of costumes here for our shield. We've got the light shield here, and then we've got the thicker shield here that you'll be able to upgrade to later as your money improves. And as I said before, we're going to make this more transparent as it gets hit, and then it'll recharge itself as it gets going. Let's have a look at the code here. So we've already created the clone of our shield, which is going to be activated when we click on the upgrade button here and buy the shield on our upgrade menu. The first item here is the Axon shield. This is all gibberish, of course. Quantum-based Axon energy shield, just meaning level 1 shield, basically. So when that's created, when we clone it inside our game, we're going to want to give it instructions to charge itself up again. So let's go grab a when I start the clone from our control blocks. And inside there, we're going to put a forever, and we're just constantly going to be checking in here to see if what our shield upgrade level is. Now we're not going to use an if-else here because there's a third state that's going to be the low shields and the high powered shields, but also no shields at all. So rather than doing an if-else, I'm just going to do 2 if statements here, and we're going to grab an equal to sign, and we're going to say if our shield upgrade level is equal to 1, so if we're on the first level of shield, then we're going to set up that maximum shield value. So let's go set shield max. And we're going to make it 100 for the basic shields, and we'll double it for the secondary shields. So I'm going to right click on this if statement, duplicate it, pop it right down below the other one, and we'll just call that one shield upgrade level 2 and change that variable to 200. Okay, that little stack of code is good to go. We're going to leave that there just to control that shield max variable. We're going to add one more if statement here, and this is going to control the transparency of our shields. As I said, when our shields take damage, we're going to use a ghost effect to make them more transparent. Now we want our shields are going to go from 0 to 200, and the way I want to make them work is between 0 and 100%. We're basically going to do a one-to-one comparison here. So if our shield is at 1% power, I want to have 1% visibility. If our shield's at 100% power, we want to go to 100% visibility, so meaning no transparency at all. When the shields get above 100, we just want them to stay at 100, basically. So we're going to have to do a bit of math to manipulate this number so that when our shield is 100 or more, it's completely full, and then as it depletes below 100, it's going to get lower. So first we've got to check and see if the costume, so this upgrade sprite here could apply to any one of a bunch of costumes, so we need this to only apply to the shield costumes. So we're going to do an if statement here, and we're going to say if the costume of the particular clone that we're looking at here is costume 2 or costume 3, meaning the two costumes that have to do with shield, if it's one of these, then we're going to set the ghost effect of the costume. So let's grab a set ghost effect, which you can find in looks under set color effect, and then you just change this over to ghost, and that determines transparency here. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of math to get this ghost effect working properly. The ghost effect actually gets higher as the item gets more transparent. So a ghost of 100 is completely transparent. And that's the opposite of what's happening to our shield energy, which is actually gonna go down as our transparency goes up. So we're going to do a bit of fancy math to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that shield energy variable, I'm going to subtract 100 from it. So right away we're going to ignore the first 100 shield energy between 200 and 100, no matter what happens. So imagine now our shield energy is 100, which means we're fully maxed out on our first level shield. We're going to end up with a shield energy of 0. And so if you plunk that in here, that will set the ghost effect to 0, which means it'll completely be visible. If our shield energy changes to 50%, for example, we end up at 50 minus 100, which is minus 50. And we're going to have to turn that back into a positive number again. So we're going to grab a multiplication sign here and multiply that times minus 1. So that'll make that a positive number. So you can see here if our shield energy is 50, then it's going to be minus 50 times minus 1, which is 50%. So our ghost is going to be correct that way. Well, you might be wondering, how is this going to work when our shield energy is above 100? And we're going to end up with a number here that's not negative. Let me show you. So let's say our shield energy is 150. We have this level 2 shield going here. Minus 100 is 50. And that's a positive number. Then we're going to multiply it by minus 1 and turn it into a negative number. We're going to end up with minus 50. But that's not something to worry about, because a ghost effect that's less than 0 is basically the same as a ghost effect of 0. So again, we're going to have no ghost effect for the entire time that our shield goes from 200 down to 100. And it's only when it gets down to 100 or less that we're going to end up with a positive number here that's going to make our shield deplete. So this will work for any combination of shields all the way from 0 up to 200, and always give us a proper transparency number the way that we like it. So mission accomplished there. Alright, so let's test that out again. I'm going to click the green flag, and as before, I've added a little hack here that gives me some credits so I don't have to actually earn money to test out these upgrades. Let's give it a start. We'll wait for our enemies to come down off the screen here, and I'm going to buy my first shield upgrade right here. And that's the Axon shield for 5,000 credits, so I'll go do that. See, nothing happens immediately, but then slowly as our shield energy goes up, you're going to see our shield is going to become thicker and, more and more solid as time goes on. Now, it's still not affecting the actual outcome of the game here. We haven't done anything to make these aliens aware of the shields. So that's what we're going to get up to next here. Okay, so we're inside our alien sprite now. You can see it selected down below. We've already got a bit of code here to determine our enemies getting killed by our good guy lasers and by our missiles and by something called the white screen that I'll be talking about a little bit later. If any of those happens, we run through this little destroy subroutine here that will just run our character through an animation of some explosion graphics. I've just made my enemy visible here. If you want to test that out, you can see that as soon as I click on this red block, a little explosion happens up top here. Beautiful. Okay, so that's working great. Now let's add another if statement down below. This is checking our enemy to see, let's switch the graphic back here. Let's check and see if he's touching the upgrades. Now we don't care if he's touching any of the other upgrades, the fins or lasers or things, but in reality if our shields are activated, then it's going to be the first part of us that ends up getting touched because we're obviously on the outside of the spaceship here. So if it's touching the upgrade, let's grab a touching block here from our light blue sensing blocks and we'll go touching upgrade. All right, so if we're touching that upgrade sprite, if our bad guy is, then we're going to want to deplete our shield, but we don't want to continue to deplete our shield for the entire time that our enemy is being destroyed here, because it's going to take 12 frames to happen. So we only want it to happen in the first frame of animation while he's wearing costume 1. So that's why I've added an AND statement here beside touching upgrades, and I'm saying if I'm touching upgrades and my costume number is equal to 1. Meaning I haven't started exploding yet. So if all those things are true, then we can go ahead and deplete our shields. Let's go to our variables. We'll go change shield energy. And we're going to change that by, well, I put -50, basically take half my shields away so that we'll be able to take 2 consecutive hits if we're wearing the type 1 shield, and if we have the type 2 shield, we'll be able to get 4 consecutive hits, as well as whatever recharge you can get in between. So that should be pretty effective for our shields. Now in addition to depleting our shields, we do want to destroy the enemy who just hit us. So let's launch another one of those destroy blocks here, right after change energy shield. And that will get rid of our bad guy as well, so he can't hit us twice. Okay, so that should be working quite nicely. Let's test out our new missile system here and see how well it does. So I'm actually going to show my shield energy variable here. It's not going to be up during the master game, but just here for testing purposes, you can see how this works here. So my shield energy starts at 0, and it continues to be 0 here because I haven't purchased my upgrade yet. I'm going to go ahead and buy my upgrade now. Axe on shield, and there we go. And now my shield is appearing, and you can see my energy going up as my shield becomes more obvious. And yeah, so let's now we're at 100, and we'll smash into a bad guy, and that worked beautifully. Let's try it one more time. Beautiful. So that's protecting us from hits the way we expected it to. Now let's hit a bunch of guys just to see how. Yeah, our shield is down into negative numbers now. Now the problem is we're still not dying even though our shield is depleted below 0, and that is because we haven't done anything to kill ourselves yet. So let's go ahead and add some code to make us die if we touch a bad guy. Okay, so we're back inside our ship sprite. I'm going to grab a when I receive start game here, and we're just going to start a new little loop here that's checking to see if we're touching a bad guy. Before we do that though, we're going to do some costume changes again to get us moving through these various costumes, and that's going to change our size as well. That'll make our explosion happen. You can see how huge our explosion is on the screen here. We're going to want to shrink it, but then of course we're going to need to bring it back to the regular size again when we get back into our game. So let's reset our size here just to bring it back to normal, anticipating what's going to happen later. So let's go set size to 100. Switch costume back to master, which is the main costume here. So let's go switch costume to master, which is right at the top. And we're going to tell it to show too, because I think we're going to be hiding it in a little bit. Okay, we'll get a little forever going here, and inside here we're gonna be checking to see if I'm touching the enemy. So let's go ahead, if, and we'll need an and statement there as well. So if I'm touching an enemy, so what else do we need to check for here when we're colliding with our bad guy? Well, we need to make sure that our shields are actually depleted. So if we're touching an enemy and our shield enemy is less than 1, let's grab a less than sign, variables. So if our shield energy is less than 1 and we're touching a bad guy, then we're gonna allow ourselves to get killed. So if our shields are depleted and we are touching an enemy, the first thing we're going to want to do is stop our ship moving or interacting with the game in any other way. So I'm just going to I'm going to grab a block here that says stop all. I'm going to change it to stop other scripts in this sprite. This will disable the movement script and anything else while we're blowing up here. We don't want anything unexpected to happen here. So we're going to stop other scripts in the sprite. We're going to play our little 8-bit explosion sound here, which I played for you the last time. It doesn't actually exist inside this version of the file. I thought it did, but so we can grab it from our enemy. Once again, here's how to transfer a sound effect from one sprite to another. We'll click on the enemy, go to our sounds, grab the explosion here, and I'm going to drag it on top of our ship, and that will make it available inside our ship sprite now. So let's go change our sound to explosion. Then we're going to set the size smaller to accommodate the huge explosion graphics. So let's go set size to 20%. And we're going to switch our costume to the first explosion costume, which is just called explosion. Then just like with our bad guys here, we're going to run through a loop here 11 times to go through the 12 different costumes, number 1, and then the ones following it. And we're going to go next costume in there. And when it's done, we can go ahead and hide our ship so that the last bit of explosion disappears there. And then we're just going to broadcast a player dead message. So let's go ahead and go to our events message and broadcast player dead. That's going to start a game over event. Let me just create a new broadcast here. We'll call it player dead. And that will make a game over pop up on our screen here, and it'll make our game end at that point here. There is a game over sprite that I designed here, and you'll find it here. It probably won't be in the early version of the file here, but you can always design your own if you can't find one. And it's just a little bit of text that says game over. Can't really read it because of the color here. Let me just show you. So it's in this pixel font, which I like a lot for game over signs, but that's in white. And so all we're going to do is let's go over to our game over screen here, and we'll just quickly code that up. So we're inside our game over sprite here. You can see when I click the green flag, we're just going to hide it to stay out of the way while we're playing the game. I'm also, just to the safety mechanism, going to move this back to the middle again with a go to 0, 0, just in case that I accidentally drag this, or a player accidentally drags it. That'll bring it back to the middle again. And now, when I receive that player dead message, when we die, we're going to want that to show, but we're going to want it to be temporarily invisible. So we're going to set ghost effect to 100, and instead of having it just pop up on the screen, we're going to have it fade into the screen here. So our ghost effect's 100. We're going to have to take away from it. Let's do it 20 times at a speed of -5. And once it's fully on the screen here, then we can stop our game. So I'm going to grab this stop all block from control, and this time we won't change it. We'll leave it at stop all. Let's have a look here at how things are working. All right, so everything's going well. That guy fled the screen. Here's another guy. Let's have him touch us. Boom, and there we go. And then the game over fades onto the screen. And the bad guys are gone, and we're basically done here. Okay, now let's try it with the shields. So again, I have 10,000 credits, so I'm going to go ahead and buy an Axon shield. And let's start whacking these guys. Whoa, that didn't work very well. That was because I didn't give my shield time to charge up. Let's try that one more time. Axe on shield. All right, you can see my shield's at 20, 30, 40, 50. Now it's strong enough to actually take a hit. Now it fades and then comes back. Let's take one more hit here. Good. And let's try a couple of hits here. Boom, and you can see the second hit took me down to 0. All right, so our shields are working exactly as we wanted them to. Very exciting progress here. All right, we're gonna move on to our missile systems here. We have 2 missiles that we've upgraded here, and they both have slightly different graphics. Here's our first missile, and here's our first missile, just a little guy with a little orange fire trail behind him. You're not really going to be able to see this. These guys are going to be moving pretty quick. And here's our second missile, quite a bit bigger. And I've decided not to put animations in these guys because I've experimented a little bit, and these guys were moving so fast you couldn't really see the animation at all, so it just seemed like a waste of energy. And we've got an explosion here as well, which is the graphic that these guys are going to make after the first kind of missile, level 1 missile goes. And we're actually, so this is going to be an area effect weapon, and what we're going to do is just blow up this explosion graphic, and while it's really big on the screen here, we're just going to send a death message to every single enemy who's touching this graphic. And so the idea is we're going to be able to kill more than one enemy at a time with an area effect weapon here. So rather than being able to aim the missile or anything like that, we're just going to have it blow up a little bit after it launches from our screen here, and it's going to blow up an area of the screen. Let's go ahead and code that right now. Okay, so we're back inside our main ship sprite again here, and I'm gonna grab another When I Receive Start Game. And in this little section here, we're going to control the timing of the missile. We're only going to be able to launch one missile every second, and so we're going to have to set a separate timer. You remember we used the built-in game timer for our firing of lasers, but we're going to have to create another timer variable just to control the missile launching, and that's called missile timer. And we can go ahead and create that if it hasn't already been created for you on your screen. So we're going to grab a forever here, and so I just want to wait that 1 second so that we can't fire a missile right away until our 1 second timer is expired. And then we're going to change missile timer by 1. So I'm pretty sure we have to initialize our missile timer. That should be over in our main block at the top here. We're setting variables. Let's just set missile timer to 0 there. Okay, that's good to go. So our level 1 missile here is going to have a 2-second timer on it. So we're going to add an if statement here that says if we have a level 1 missile upgrade and our timer is greater than 2, then we can go ahead and launch the missile. So we'll start a missile alert sound. That's that sound right there. And then we're going to broadcast missile ready. Of course, the missile's not going to be launched from here. It's going to be launched elsewhere. So because we're waiting to be able to load up that missile into our torpedo tube or whatever, we need some way of knowing that our missile is actually ready to go. I played with a couple of different mechanisms, like changing the graphics of the ship around, but I thought a more elegant way to do it was to have a missile ready alert going on here. So I've created another graphic in the style of this upgrade button here at the bottom right that just says missile ready. And so that's going to be invisible at the start of the game, and then it's going to appear every time our missile is ready to be launched. So we broadcast a missile ready right here inside our ship. So let's go over to the missile notification sprite down at the bottom here, and we'll do a little bit of coding there to make that message appear when to make that notification appear when it receives that message. So let's just start by positioning this properly. The position that it's in right now is pretty good, but we want to lock that in so it's minus 144, minus 158. We don't want to accidentally again move that around on the screen so that it doesn't look as tidy. We want it hidden, of course, at the beginning. And then we want it to appear when it receives that missile ready command. So when I receive missile ready, I'm going to have to type that in. Oh no, there is a missile ready right here already. So when I receive missile ready, we're going to show that red notification. Now, while we're sitting here waiting to fire our missile, we're waiting for a key press. I've attached the missile to the Z key here. So at this point, once our missile is armed, we just have to hit the launch button. So we're gonna wait here. Let's go to our control blocks here. We're gonna go wait until key press Z. So key Z is pressed. And as soon as we fire that, then we can hide the notification again. Our missile's no longer armed. And we're gonna set our missile timer to 0. And that's gonna reset that timer so that we can wait for our next missile to be armed. Now you'll notice no missile's actually been fired here. Nothing has been done here to move the missile forward. That's because that's going to happen inside the missile. So let's go have a look at that. So after we've reset our missile timer, we can actually launch our missile here. We're just going to create a clone of it right in the spot here. So let's go Control, create clone of missile. And now our missile is armed and launched, and we can go ahead and move it forward inside of the missile sprite. So let's go look at the missile sprite here. When the green flag is clicked, we're going to hide our missile until the clone's created, of course. Let's go when I started the clone. We'll show you. Then we're going to tell it to go to the location of the ship. So let's go to our motion blocks, grab a go to random position, change it to go to ship. And we'll bring it to the front layer so that it appears on top of the ship. That's where the launcher is, of course. So let's go to front. And now, depending on what kind of missile it is, we have to change the graphic around. So we're going to do a quick if statement here, or an if-else statement here. And we're going to say if missile upgrade level equals 1. So let's go ahead and grab the missile upgrade level. So if we're wearing a first level missile, then we're going to switch to the costume. Switch costume to Missile 1. And we've got 2 different missile sounds here. This one's for our first missile. It's called Missile 1. And here's our Missile 2, which is much more dramatic sounding. There we go. Okay, so we're going to play that Missile 1 sound. Start sound, Missile 1. And then we're going to do something pretty much the same in the else statement here. So I'm going to just duplicate what's in there. I'm going to switch. So if it's not Missile 1, by default it's going to be Missile 2. So we'll go switch costume to Missile 2 and play Missile 2 sound. There we go. Okay, so when I start as a clone also, we're going to want to start this missile moving. So let's create a second when I start as a clone. This one has to do with the looks. And the second one here is going to be all about the functionality of the missile, actually moving it forward. So let's go to our motion blocks. We'll point in direction 0, which is straight up. We're going to set our ghost effect to 0, because we'll be playing with ghosts later, and we want to make sure that that's turned off when our guy gets created. Let's set our missile speed to 1. This is going to accelerate. We're moving at a speed of 1 at first, and this is a new variable as well that we haven't seen yet. Set missile speed to 1. And so what's going to happen is our missile is going to start off very slow, and then it's going to accelerate as it moves across the screen here. Now we're going to have it just kind of hover there slowly at a speed of 1 for half a second. So let's go wait 0.5. We're kind of waiting for this missile to rev up a little bit before it starts moving. Then we're going to move across the speed, across the screen. We're going to move 30 times through a loop here. And each time we're going to change our missile speed by a little bit. So our missile is going to go faster and faster each time. It'll be 1, then 1.5. Then we're going to change this by 0.5. Then it'll be moving at a speed of 2, etc. Faster and faster until it runs through this loop. And while we're changing this missile speed, we also, of course, want to move our missile. So we're just going to change the missile's Y. They're going to move straight up, as I said. So let's go change Y by, well, however fast the missile's going. That's our missile speed variable. So let's pop that in there, missile speed. Okay, good. So our missile's moving up the screen properly now, and we're going to add another if statement here that basically is going to be invoked after we're done moving. So again, this missile's not going to blow up until it's done its movement cycle here. If it hits an alien along the way, it is going to take it out though, because we are detecting alien hits if touching missile here. So we can use it to just plow through aliens in front of us, but it's still going to blow up at the very end. It'll go through those other aliens and then end up blowing up. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to check and see the missile upgrade level. So if my missile upgrade level is equal to 1, which is the main missile, this is an if-else statement, by the way. We're going to do the other kind of missile down in the else statement. But so if we've got the first upgrade level, we're going to play a little missile explosion sound. And that's kind of a combination launch and explosion sound. You'll hear it here. So that's why one of the reasons we added a little delay there, so there'd be time for the missile to move before that sound actually happened. After that, we're going to switch to that red explosion costume. Then we're going to repeat 10 times. We're going to make it get bigger and bigger and bigger by 100% each time. And we're also going to change the brightness effect by 10, which is going to change that red into a white. All right, so we're basically done with the missile explosion part here. Let's go have a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that upgrade with my cheap money here, the Q-43 launcher. You can see that my missile ready sign is up there, so I'm just going to launch the missile. Boom. There you go. So, but you can see that missile explosion, once it gets super big there, it stays there destroying everything that's touching it. We are going to have to delete that when we're done. So right at the end of the if-else statement, let's go ahead and add a delete this clone. And that will, regardless of what kind of missile we're launching here, it'll just delete the explosion at the missile and the explosion at the end here. Okay, so that works for the first kind of missile. The second kind of missile we're going to do a little trick with. We want this to be an ultra powerful missile. You can see in the upgrade window here. Let's go ahead and upgrade. Our second upgrade after the Q-43 launcher is a missile called the Annihilation Class Launcher. Warning, this missile weapon is banned under Section 232 of the Galactic Convention of Space Warfare. So this weapon is banned. That must mean it's quite powerful, and in fact it is. What we're going to do is take out every single enemy on the screen once this missile gets fired. So let's just broadcast a message here that says that this missile has been launched. This new message is going to be called Nuke It. And it's basically going to be equivalent to firing a nuclear weapon here. Nuke it. Okay, there we go. And so now we're going to go over to the screen, to the sprite that's called white screen. And that is literally a white screen. It's just a screen that's been filled with the white color. And that's going to flash on the screen really quickly. And the way that we're going to kill all our enemies off is just by having everything that's touching this white screen get killed, which makes a lot of sense. So let's go over to our white screen code. And we're going to say when green flag clicked, hide. And let's send it to the middle of the screen as well to 0, 0 in case we accidentally move it. Now, when I receive that Nuke It message, we've got a a new sound effect to play here that shows that everything's been nuked, and that's called missile vaporized. That's a pretty scary sound. All right, then we'll do a show on this white screen to have it flash white just for a little bit. We're gonna wait for 0.1 seconds here, long enough for us to visually detect this. Then we're gonna quickly have it fade away. Let's go repeat 5 times. And each time we're going to change that ghost effect. Looks, that's why we reset the ghost effect at the beginning, you remember. So let's go change ghost effect by 20, and that'll bring us to 100, which will remove that from the screen. All right, at the end here, just to be certain, we're going to do a hide. And we're going to, after we've hidden it, we can go ahead and reset that ghost effect to 0. Okay, so our white screen has flashed, and that's going to kill all the enemies on the screen. You might remember that we've already set that up. I promised I'd explain to you later what the white screen was all about. And so when the white screen is visible on the gameplay board here, where this if statement, if touching white screen, is going to be activated, and we're going to destroy everything that it's touching, which is basically everything. So all our bad guys are going to get killed there. All right, I think we're ready to test that out and buy the second missile. I'm going to have to increase my starting cash a little bit more because I can't actually afford my missile. So let's go maybe 200,000 here. All right, and we'll hide one of the variables that's visible here that we don't need, shield energy. There we go. All right, click the green flag here. We'll buy our first shield upgrade, the Q-43 launcher, and let's buy the Annihilation class launcher here. It's showing up ready right away, which is very weird. Okay, let's launch it. And there you go, you can see that it flashes white on the screen. Now we're gonna actually have to wait the 10 seconds. And there's our ready message, fire. There you go, beautiful. Okay, so that's doing what we wanted it to. That's going to be very helpful for us later on in the game. Now our second missile is going to have a different timing because it's so much more powerful. It's going to have a 10-second timer on it. So I've really just duplicated. We're back inside the ship's right here, and I'm looking at the section here that's controlling this missile alert. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing here, except if my missile upgrade level is 2, if I'm wearing my second missile costume, we're going to set that timer to 10 because it's so much more powerful. We're going to have to wait a little longer for it to charge up. It's a big, heavy missile. Okay, so we've accomplished pretty much everything we set out to do at the beginning. We created a custom spaceship with different parts and doodads we can add to it. We created an upgrade menu that allowed you to attach these new pieces to our spaceship. And we've added some code to give our spaceship new functions and powers as we add upgrades to it. We've got 4 different kinds of upgrades and 2 different power levels to apply to each one. Now this is far from a finished game. If you do a little bit of play testing, you'll see that it probably takes a little bit too long to be able to afford some of those upgrades. Our enemies start coming down the screen very, very quickly and can overwhelm your player if he's not upgraded. But once you do buy your upgrades, you'll find that you're pretty much playing the game no sweat. And so if I was continuing to develop this, I'd probably want to make my enemies shoot, or I'd want to find some other way to make my enemies a little more progressively hard as the game progresses. So this is the real magic in game making, and where the real hard work comes in is taking your existing game concept and tweaking it and playing with it and play testing it and sharing it with your friends until you've got something that's really competitive and fun. Anyhow, I hope I've inspired you guys to perhaps try and set up your own game with upgradable options and an upgrade store the way that I've shown you here. If you come up with your own game, do share them with me at info@chromeworks.ca. I might show it on my weekly live stream, which airs Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. In the meantime, please like and subscribe if you want to see more cool Scratch tutorials and other beginner Scratch content. My name is Andrew Tomec, and I'll be back again soon. Nice to see you guys. Bye.